Sly Stallone, who's I think trying to make another action movie or at least two more, or they're like they want to be all these guys. So I don't know if we grow out of it. I think that's actually our biggest problem as a country is
I
that
give you that.
we love violence in the subjective and the theoretical.
Yes.
Um, so much that we would like to gin up this idea that we would do something in certain situations, knowing full well 99.9% of us would absolutely evacuate all our fluids in any
Hey,
moment
hey,
that
hey.
we like to see on the silver screen.
Hey.
I,
You can
look,
whip out all you want, but I can jump off that fucking helicopter onto the top of that building, okay? I don't care that I'm 46, got one bad knee. I can fucking jump. I
I
mean,
don't think.
come on.
Well, because I think violence. I mean, no one's arguing that. I mean that's true. But I think the point is how we kind of got on the tangent was whether how the use of violence, the depiction of violence, which is you've probably seen more gruesome things, especially if you like John Wick. But right? How long does it take to kill a person with a book? We're gonna find out. We're gonna watch John Wick, but let's be honest. At the end of that, you were like, "Oh, wow, that was ridiculous." Whereas the Curbing in American History X, you were questioning yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You were questioning yourself. That is two different directors using violence as a tool and getting two different messages across for two different audiences pretty masterfully, actually. I mean, we're talking about two really good directors in both of those cases, but that's what I'm saying. Like, when you start understanding how you use violence, and I think that's the distinction you make between the horror porn and the torture porn and good horror films right there. How they use the violence and how it resonates with you is the difference.
If you want to talk topical, it's Rayo Rahim and Do the Right Thing. Same thing. I'm sitting there watching. We've watched the movie probably about 2 or 3 times by that point. Actually, probably around 10 because it was one of the few VHSs we had. But I remember, Rayo Rahim gets choked out by the police, dies
Yep.
because of that murder tactic. And I hear sniffling. I look over. Same thing. The same man who will watch horror movie after horror movie. He doesn't seem like 100 teenagers get killed in the middle of sex with all the fucking horror movies he watched from the 80s and early 90s. But nothing at all. But Rayo Rahim does, and he is uncontrollably weeping, which is another reason why it's on my list. Those two. It had a lot to do with the fact that the person who, if y'all think Star Child is like heartless when it comes to these kind of things, you should meet my brother. Believe me, it would make him an emotional, weeping individual. My brother has zero emotion, and those 2 times, weeping like a freaking baby.
So Rayo Rahim, though, I mean, that's on your list. I mean, and it makes a lot of sense. And it does, of course, like it's in pot right now. How can we be living in this time, this place? I'm not trying to get too specific with dates since we usually record a little ways out, but also, spoiler alert, they just sent a cop to jail who absolutely deserved to go to jail. By the time you hear this, thankfully, let's hope he stays there. But yeah, how could it not be? Yeah. How could it not be topical? How could it not be? Indeed.
Because fuck that guy.
Yeah. How could it not be topical, right?
Well, I'll hop in real fast on that. It's topical because here's the thing. When Do the Right Thing came out, Spike Lee wasn't saying anything new to a lot of different people. The problem was a lot of people continued to ignore him. A lot of people continued to think that was theatrics or drama, or he was just ginning things up because he was Spike Lee and he was already an agitator. A lot of people just immediately just pushed it to the side, whereas many families that look like Greg and mine, we knew that stuff was already happening. So when we saw that, it wasn't so much a shock value of, oh my God, the cops killed a black guy. That was already known. It was more like, damn, that's Rayo Rahim. He was one of the awesome characters.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think when my family first said, interestingly enough, we watched that as a family.
Yeah, me too.
There were like 10 of us in a room watching that movie because, everybody had heard about it. And it's one of the few movies I ever saw my father actually sit through. And you watch it. And
Rosie Perez part is a little hard with your parents. Just
what's up?
point that out. The Ice Cube and the Rosie Perez part, a little hard when your parents are in the room.
No, my parents didn't care about that shit.
No, I'm saying for me.
For the kid, not for the parents. The parents are like, see that? That's how we made you.
Caribbean parents.
Yeah. No, the parents knew what they were looking at. For me, I was kind of like, I would like to enjoy this on my own. Thank you.
Kids are like, time. I don't want to think about that.
It's awkward. It's definitely awkward.
Yeah.
But we watched it together as a family. And when it got to that part, it wasn't shock like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. It was shock like, oh shit, they went there. Okay. Like that was real. Like that was honest. And the question and the thing that they really, hit specifically, and it's one of the reasons I always bring that movie up anytime somebody wants to talk about how Boston's racist. It's like when you couldn't run away from the fact that that was the real story, and he threw it in. It was magnificent.
Two moments in my life that Greg's talked about that always stick out. And one is in middle school, it was a constant barrage of having my friends who were white understand that when we're watching movies or we're listening to music and they're talking about the man, how it slowly started to dawn on them that they were talking about them.
The man.
It'd be like the silent look at each other where they're kind of like, is it me? And I'm like, yeah.
It's you.
Yeah. Totally.
All right. Well, let me bring it back to what maybe this fits in, maybe it doesn't. Hopefully, it doesn't bring us out too much, but it has some themes here that will go to it. But I wanted to go to the death that still makes me cry, that I can watch and do watch over and over again. The death I want for myself. How's that one for you? Like, how's that? The way you want to go out in your head, even though you are not going to match this, right? My wife is an occupational therapist, so frankly, she's seen people either, if not expire, on their way to expiring, and it's just nothing like we expect and nothing like we see in the movies. But the movie death that I want is that of Roy Batty in Blade Runner. So, right, this whole scene is just, firstly, we are going to have to do an episode on Blade Runner and just do the deep dive into it at some point, gentlemen, because it is by far my favorite film. If you're asking me to take one film with me to the desert island, well, that's it right there. And that's saying a lot. Like, this is a Star Wars guy here. But, just from a deep, meaningful film, a film that means a lot to me, what can I say? But really, and if you, once again, I'll give you a quick summation. If you haven't seen it, shame on you. Get out. Go see it right now. Don't even go see it. No, you see it at home, of course, right?
Yeah, where are you going to go see it?
God, I just think about those days. I'm still missing those days. I'm still missing the catharsis of seeing, sitting in the dark theater.
Even if movie theaters were open, where are you going to see it?
Actually, I mean, there were re-releases and there would be occasional showings down at the Coolidge Corner, which I was going to
say, yeah.
Prior to having kids, I would still do those things. But now
at present is what I'm saying.
At present, not going to happen. I get it. But definitely a movie worth seeing. But in this film, there is, and this is why we have to do our entire episode on it, because this movie was science fiction and it's so good, it's not science fiction anymore. Like, that is how good it is to me. The main character is essentially trying to hunt down what we thought were androids, which now we really know are genetically engineered humans. And despite fighting with each other in his last moment of this synthetic life form's life, he decides to save the main character, who's been doing nothing but killing his friends the entire movie, whom you think is the good guy, but really is the bad guy. And there's layers and layers and layers of questions. And he sits there and he gives this soliloquy that, as I say, everybody wishes they could give a soliloquy, because these synthetic life forms have a predestined time of which they're going to die. They have an incept date. They have a birth date and an incept date. They say they're genetically engineered only to live so long. And actually, their entire point of coming back to Earth, which it's illegal for them to do, is to try and get to be able to live longer. But in fact, because of their enhanced abilities and all these things, they are unable to do so. So in that moment, this life, this man, this soul is contemplating the meaning of his own life as his life is expiring, which we can only presume we're going to do if we have the capacity to do so. And he talks about, I've seen things you people wouldn't believe, and he just describes all these things he's the combat he's been through, the beauty he's seen, the horror he's seen, just a few short lines. And his final bit is all these moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. And then he says, time to die, and he expires. And to me, it's just such a well put together, beautiful scene that I've always loved. He's holding a pigeon and he lets go of the pigeon. I mean, it's full of cliches. I'll totally get it, but at the same time, there is something human and timeless. It questions within the film deeper. It's of course questioning what is humanity, and that's why one day I still look forward to going into it deeper of when you create artificial intelligence, when you create life, where does the point come where we have truly created it fully, right? The soul, those undefinables, like where do we start to cross over in that? But just his own self-awareness and those questions that we all have and that I have seen people face, as I've, both my parents have died and know other people who have, some suddenly, some not. Those questions. It goes back even to that old expression about no one on their deathbed wishes they just worked a couple more hours at the office. So there was just something always about that is so timeless to me, and that I just really that is the sort of the complete opposite end of American History X for me. That's the death I watch again and do watch over and over again. Granted, it's nowhere, it's not brutally violent either, right? And as I say, I think that's probably part of the reason why I want it as the death for myself. I want to say something really meaningful, and then preferably be listening to Eclipse from Pink Floyd.
To all the people listening, when you do see the news of a genetically enhanced human being who's running amok throughout the world and then hunted down by Harrison Ford, I want to let you know that was Josh Fink.
Yeah. That's it.
I'm calling it out ahead of time.
Shot by Harrison Ford.
Whenever it happens.
If I'm genetically engineered, there was some serious problem in the engine.
Bro, you're getting hunted down by Harrison Ford.
Oh yeah.
Anything's possible.
Hey, get back here. Give me back my family.
Let me do something other than point.
I agree with you. I saw that movie kind of late, actually. I saw that when I was like 22, something like that. A lot of wine ago. And it was one of those movies all your, film friends were always going on about. And I honestly didn't think I would like it that much. I loved it. I mean, I think it's one of the few movies that really made you think about, like, you can have a philosophical discussion around this movie, and that's something that I feel like only science fiction can really do. Like we can argue about that when we talk about it as well, but some of the questions that science fiction can look at, you can only do through science fiction.
I think when it's done well, yes. I think, and I think it, it's part of what even brings us together on this podcast, and with the greater thing of pop culture. But it does, at its best, it wants to evoke those questions. It wants to ask, where are we heading and why, right? And shouldn't we pause to ask why, right? And what could this mean? Like, is that not worth the time to think about?
I hate to be the rain cloud on you guys, but I think
oh, you
Josh,
fucking love it, please.
No,
you
hey,
fucking
look,
love it.
That was a lie.
I admittedly do like
totally
that movie a lot.
Don't fucking lie.
I'm not gonna say I love it. I do like it a lot. I really appreciate it. I like it more for what it was trying to do than what it actually did. Here's the problem, and I think you nailed it, Josh. Had science fiction been done well throughout the 80s instead of just resting on their laurels, because other than Star Wars and